Hi everyone, Dr. Karen here. We are talking about toxic work environments. So whether or not you are a CEO, an HR manager, an employee, a parent maybe that actually needs to and wants to really help their teenager, young adult actually manage a toxic work environment, this video is for you. So I'm going to give you kind of 4 tips on how to manage a toxic work environment. And so we're going to be using leadership EQ skills to kind of lean into this. We've got a great free scorecard if you'd like to kind of like explore what is your leadership EQ as it is right now. Just put in the comments yes, and someone from our team will actually send that to you. And of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel so you get notified with other videos that actually come out, because everything we do as a company is to teach leadership EQ skills to help you thrive both at work and at home. So let's dive in. We work with companies around the world. We work with all kinds of different companies, big companies, small companies, healthy companies, toxic companies. And when an environment is toxic, it has a massive impact on a person's performance, their communication, their well-being. It really has a massive impact. And so toxic environments could be anything from somebody who's like super critical to someone who's actually talking about behind your back to really poor boundaries that somebody, an environment, and a manager that just kind of instills to you without any kind of warning. And so toxic environments come in many shapes and sizes. But the beautiful thing is, this is the part that is really important, is that we cannot control whether or not an environment is toxic. We can control how we respond to that toxic behavior. That's where the empowerment comes, and that's where your superpower is, okay? So that's where we're gonna lean in. We can't control this, we can control this, okay? So the first thing I really want us to do is focus on just that, the mindset, realizing I cannot control the toxic environment. I cannot control whether or not my manager says nice things to me, whether or not my manager kind of gives me great feedback, whether I can't control my manager, I can't control this environment, but I can control how I respond to it. I can control the thoughts that I tell myself, and I can also control my behavior in terms of what I'm doing about it. And so that's the first step, is really hone and realize I cannot control the environment, I can control my mindset, and I can control my actions about it. And so really understanding the power that has is really critical, because otherwise what happens is we can kind of play the victims, like, oh my goodness, look at this is so terrible. And it is, any toxic environment is going to have a toll on us for sure. So I don't want to diminish that. And I also want people to realize the power that they do have in terms of responding to a toxic situation, okay? So really, number 1 is really pay attention to the mindset. Number 2 is you want to set boundaries, and you want to put very clear boundaries around the time you're giving to work and the time you're taking from work. Boundaries, I think, are always really important, but they're even more important when you're actually in a toxic environment. So maybe the boundary is I'm not checking my email past 6 o'clock, or maybe your boundary is I'm going to speak to my HR manager about the situation. I'm not going to talk about it with anybody else. I'm just going to talk about it with my HR manager to kind of figure out like a solution towards the situation. So you want to kind of think about what are the boundaries that you can create to protect you. Boundaries are your best friend, okay? So when we have a boundary, and again, boundaries are always really important, but especially in toxic environments, it's like they protect us, they shield us. When we have no boundaries, people can kind of come at us at all times. When we have a boundary, is we really have control over what access people actually have to us. And so really think about what are some healthy boundaries that you could set up for yourself to protect yourself, so that it's almost like you're putting your armor on to kind of go to the working environment, and then you're putting your armor on to kind of when you actually leave your environment. And so think about healthy boundaries. And if you're having a hard time figuring that out, again, a great place to start is if you've got a great relationship with your HR manager, talk to your HR manager saying, I really want to respond well to this. I want to really respond with class and great leadership and great emotional intelligence, I'm struggling a little bit on knowing what are some healthy boundaries in this situation. Could we kind of brainstorm together? And so that is your second one, all right? So the first one is actually really focus on your mindset. Second one is you're actually going to focus on your boundaries. The third thing that I really want you to think about is really focus on your own emotional energy. I talk about this in my book, The 3 Chairs, How Great Leaders Drive Communication, Performance, and Engagement. I talk about this in my TED Talk about confidence and great leadership. But it's the idea that we are all in charge of our own emotional energy, okay? And so think about it like a little battery. Think if the battery goes down, it gets depleted, and it actually gets recharged. There's certain things that you and I do that really will deplete our energy, and there's certain things that can actually energize us. And so what you want to do is think to yourself, what are the things that I am going to prioritize so I can really maximize my energy? Because we need this, especially if we're going into a toxic environment, which can be very draining. Okay, so in my book, The 3 Chairs, I talk about the 6 different areas that you want to look at your emotional energy. It's what I call the 6 P's of engagement. Setting goals around purpose, people, profit, play, physical health. And so you want to kind of lean in and look at what are the goals that I can control to help myself increase my level of engagement, increase my emotional energy, so I've got enough here so that I can actually step into my toxic work environment. And the last one, everybody, is think to yourself about around skills and developing skills around asserting yourself. There's a lot of toxic behavior that happens in the workplace that people are not aware that it's toxic. And sometimes they're aware of it, and sometimes they're not aware of it. And so part of leadership EQ skills is learning to be assertive, learning to stand up for yourself, but doing it in a way that's really respectful and kind. It is a way, and it's a type of setting a boundary, but it's more direct. And a lot of people don't do that. They either don't say anything at all, or they're actually aggressive. So learning to be assertive, learning to stand up for yourself in assertive language. And key things to kind of think about is I think, I feel, I need. Moving forward, I would appreciate. And so the key word with assertive language is I. Aggressive is you. You do this, you do this, you do this. Don't do aggressive, do assertive. Now, what's interesting from a gender perspective, sometimes when we use I language, sometimes we think that somehow we're being aggressive, and that's actually not true. Assertive language is you're standing up for yourself, but the secret is you're using I language. And so you want to think to yourself as you're exploring and figuring out what to do to manage this toxic work environment, ask yourself, should I, will I, do I want to assert myself using I language to kind of really establish and try to make a situation healthier? I can think of a time that I was in a toxic work environment. The manager was very much of a bully. I had a heads up that was actually the case. And I tried setting boundaries. I worked on my mindset. I worked on my 6 P's of engagement. I did all the things that I'm telling you about. None of it really kind of changed the dynamic other than I did feel better about myself. And then it came to a point where I realized, you know what, I'm actually going to say something. I'm actually going to assert myself. And I did. But I rehearsed it. I practiced it. And the manager was quite shocked at the time, but actually, surprisingly, actually responded very well and actually gained more respect for me after that. And we had actually ended up, the whole dynamic, the whole toxic environment shifted actually in a very positive way. That doesn't always happen. In that particular situation, it was actually a very positive outcome. But I decided I was going to do it even if the person doesn't. You don't enter those conversations hoping the person's going to change, because a lot of times they don't change. You enter that conversation going, I'm going to do this because I think this is the right thing to do. I think this is a healthy thing to do. And I'm going to do it for my own self-worth and own self-respect. And if the situation changes, amazing. If it doesn't, that's disappointing, but that's not why I'm actually doing it. And so that was my mindset kind of going in, and I was pleasantly surprised when the person actually received it actually quite well. And so think about that. But if you're going to do that, I encourage you to work with a mentor or coach, practice it out so that you can make sure that when you are communicating, it's coming across really assertively. And remember, life is tough. Life is tough. Life throws all kinds of stuff at us. If you were to interview 10 people, I can tell you probably about nine of them are going to say yes, they had a toxic work environment in some point in their career. So this is one of those life skills that it's really important that all of us learn how to manage. So hopefully these tips you have found them helpful. And like I've shared earlier, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you get notified with other videos, and check out our other YouTube videos. We've got lots of different ones that teach leadership EQ skills to help you thrive at work, in your business, relationships, and wellness.